All right, so in your notes, you need to write down these two things. You have two forms of lines that we're going to be looking at. We have the slope-intercept, which is usually my favorite one, but not always the most efficient. So slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. And I know you have it other places, but I want you to put it here too. Then we have another one that is called the slope point form. And the slope point form is really interesting. So what's going to happen is you're going to be given the slope and you're going to be given a point. And I'm going to, instead of just x and y, to say that these are actually numbers, I'm going to put a little subscript on it called a subscript of 1. So what that means is this is point 1. So this is the first point I'm giving you. And by putting a little 1 on there, I'm putting a name tag on the x and y, saying that those are from the first point. So it's like saying, hi, I'm the x from the first point. And so in slope point form, what's going to happen is you're going to have y minus. Now that y is just like this y. So these y's are the same. They stay in the equation. That doesn't change. But then it's going to be minus the y from the point that you had equals the slope times x minus the point that you had. So this is point slope form. It's very similar to slope-intercept form, but we have an extra x and an extra y. And you'll also notice there's no b value. And that b value is taken care of when you do math. So we're going to use both of these and show you how you can use both of them to do the same thing, and then you choose which method you like best. So you are going to be given this information. So let's say we are told that the slope is -3, and this point, -2, -1, is on your line. Okay, so you know a point on your line, this is the point on your line, and you know your slope. So slope-intercept form is like this. I know my slope, right? I know that's -3, so I can replace m with -3. So now we have y equals -3x plus b. But then I have a problem because I'm not told what b is, like I have been in the past. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and this is going to be our temporary solution. Okay, our temporary solution. I missed the m. What that means is I'm going to temporarily, so just for a little bit, plug this in for x and this in for y. Be very careful that you plug it in for x and then y, that you plug it in the right spot. So y is -1, x is -2, and what's going to happen, because that point is a solution for our line, it means we can plug it in. And then what happened is 3 times -2, that's +6, is I'm left with the b value now that I can solve for. Subtract 6 on both sides. I get -7 equals b, and now I know what b is. Right, b is -7, so I can go back up to my equation, and instead of b, I can put -7. And there's my equation using slope-intercept form. So we have a bit of math to do with that. Now, if you want to try it with the point-slope form, we get y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So what that means is I could just plug everything in right away. Okay, I've got my slope, right? My slope is -3, so I can plug in -3. My y has to stay, my x has to stay, and now I've got this point here. Remember, this will be x1, this will be y1. So y1 is -1, so I plug in a -1 there. Be very careful because you'll notice I already have a negative from there, and now my y1 is a negative, so you got to be very careful with that. And then the x value is -2, so I plug in -2. Oop, I got to be careful there too because I already have a negative. Right, I already have that negative, that's right there. And then my -2, the x was negative, so I have that right there. Then I'm going to simplify 2 negatives, make a plus. So this would be y plus 1 equals -3. I have 2 negatives, that'll be a plus, x plus 2. Remember, whenever you have a bubble, we do that distributive property, the rainbow method. So we got y plus 1 equals -3x, Negative 3 times 2 is minus 6. And then the whole goal is to get it to be slope-intercept form. So I want it to be y equals, which means I don't want that plus 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. All right, so now I got y equals negative 3x minus 7. And you'll notice, hopefully, that we got the same thing. Both equations are the same. I just got there a little bit differently. So that is how you use both slope-intercept form and point-slope form. You can decide which one you like. I suggest trying both of them, not on each one, but I mean, try it one problem, do one problem, do another, and see which one you like better. One more thing I need to point out, okay, if we have parallel lines, okay, you guys have learned parallel means they'll never cross, but the reason they never cross is because they're going up and over the same amount. Okay, if one was going up more than the other, then they would cross, right? Because it would run into it. So because they're going, they're going up over and over the same amount, that means they have the same slope. So let's say that this line right here is y equals, let's say 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, so that's that line right there. So that line right there is y equals 1/2 x plus 4. And let's say for this line right here, I actually don't know anything about it other than the point 6, 5 is on it. That's all I know about it, is that 6, 5 is on it. And your job is to figure out what is the equation. I'm actually going to use point slope for here, just because I think it works nicer with this. And the point I'm going to use is, of course, the point on my line, right? I've got a point on my line. It's 6, 5. So this is x1, this is y1. So I'm going to plug in y1 is 5, x1 is 6. So that's great. I have the point, but what about the slope? I mean, why would I use point slope form? Where's the slope? Well, it kind of goes back a little bit when I was talking a little bit earlier. Remember this blue line up here, this one is parallel, which means it goes up and over the same amount, which means it has the same slope. So the slope on this one I can use as the slope on this one. So I can put a 1/2 there, and it'll work out just fine. And so now I just finish it off by doing the math that I need to do. Right, so we got y minus 5 equals, I've got to multiply through by that 1/2. So I've got 1/2 x minus 1/2 times 6, half of 6. Think about it. You don't even have to do fraction math. You just have to think. Half of 6 is 3. And then my last step is get y by itself. So I'm going to add 5 to the other side. Let me add it to the constant on the other side. And we get y equals 1/2 x plus 2. And that's the equation of the second line. It's not too bad. Parallel lines mean they have the exact same slope.